Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. In this world, we are involved in so many different ways. This is a world of scenes. There are so many things we see, so many things we encounter, and for each of them, we have an act. There is an act that goes along with each of the scenes that we encounter. You know, if you watch movies, in romantic comedies, there is the romantic comedy act. In dramas, there is the drama act. In adventure movies, there is the adventure act. And they all have different costumes, and they all have different ways of doing things. And they all give different emotional reactions and have different ways that they play themselves out. Well, our life is like that too. Depending on the acts that we take on, we play things out in certain ways. But the crucial thing that we have to understand is that we have an act. And we use this act to move our way through situations. As we use this act to move through situations, we need to be conscious of the fact that what we see, what we encounter, what we sense is illusory. In movies, these illusory scenes are treated very seriously. These illusory scenes make up the plot. They make up the plot lines. They make up the emotional content of the movie. They make up what goes on. And it's the same way for us in life. In our act, we take on the role that we play. And the mind takes this role very seriously. And the mind plays with this role as if the outcome of what we're involved in has enormous consequences. Because we see things like that, and because we attach consequences to all of the illusory actions in the world, we ride an emotional roller coaster where we become upset, or we become happy, or we become frightened, or we become soothed based on the context of the illusory story that we're involved in. And this is going on all over the world, and it's going on with everybody. Each one of us is going through our comedy or our drama or our romance or our war or our happiness or our difficulty. And we are giving credence to all of these things. And we are subject to the ebb and flow of what the mind considers positive and negative outcomes. But if we enter into the path of truth, the path of reality, the path of understanding reality, then we also understand that simultaneously, while there is this world of form, which is in illusion, and which has all the ebbs and flows that I mentioned, there is also an entire world of non-form existent simultaneously with the form world, a world of qualities that have no form, yet are in truth more real than anything our senses encounter, that are in truth more real than what our eyes can hear or our eyes can see or our ears can hear, that in truth are the truth, that are not subject to all of the ebbs and flows of the world. If we watch the world, and if we take the world at its face value and are affected by everything that goes on, we become emotionally destabilized. Because if we are empathetic, and not everyone is, but if we are empathetic, then we feel the pain of everyone that's going on. And unless we have control over this pain, the pain can overwhelm us, and the pain becomes what we're more involved in than the truth. And with the pain comes fear. The fear that what we're seeing going on in the world will happen to us. The pain and the fear, when they conjoin, cause us an inability to function appropriately and can give us anxiety, stress, all the way to mental illness. So, what do we do to understand truth? What do we do to avoid this difficulty? We have to focus on reality. We have to focus on understanding that everything that we see is an illusion. And everything that we see is connected to form. And that there is a world beyond form. And we are part of that world beyond form. And within that world beyond form exist the essential qualities of existence, the natural qualities of existence, the things that always existed. Allah's natural being that always existed is in this world without form. And in this world without form, so many of the things that exist in this world of form don't exist. Separations don't exist. Old age doesn't exist. Death doesn't exist. Illness doesn't exist. War doesn't exist. Separations don't exist. And we have to attach ourselves to that at the same time that we live within this world of form and are surrounded by form, and everyone who thinks that this form is the beginning and end of all things. And we need to recognize that not only isn't it the beginning and end of all things, it's illusory. And we have to attach ourselves to that which is real. And one of the things that is real is gratitude. The gratitude for consciousness, the gratitude for mercy, the gratitude for compassion, the gratitude for the fact that we can love and be loved, the gratitude for the fact that these overriding realities that exist in outside of form are available to us, and we don't have to live our life based on form. We can detach from the form and live our life in the qualities of reality. But to do this, we have to begin to change who we are. We have to begin to change what it is that we consider important. If our financial status is the most important thing in our life, we're going to have trouble doing this. If our fame is the most important thing in our life, we're going to have trouble doing this. If our ego is the most important thing in our life, we're going to have trouble doing this. If our nature is to be narcissistic, we're going to have trouble doing this, because to be able to attach to truth, to be able to attach to reality, we have to become truth, and we have to become reality, which means all of the things that are not truth and are not reality have to be abandoned. And it's very hard for us to abandon all that we've lived our whole life with. It's very hard for us to abandon our personality. It's very hard for us to abandon our likes and dislikes. It's very hard to abandon our religion. It's very hard to abandon all these things that our parents, our friends, and all the people we associated with have either taught us or assumed. And we assumed all of those things with them. It's very hard for us to understand that most of the world doesn't see reality, but instead sees a make-believe created reality that they hold as truth. The religions tell us that we're different from each other, but we're not. Our ego tells us that we're different from each other, but we're not. Our complexions tell us that we're different from each other, but we're not. Our languages tell us that we're different from each other, but we're not. And to be able to transcend these things, to be able to transcend this illusion is the true work of man, the true work that we are given. So this gratitude has to come forth based on Allah's qualities. This gratitude has to come forth with an understanding that there exists simultaneously with this world of form, a world of non-form. And that world of non-form is the real world. That world of non-form is reality. And that means that we have to look at ourselves and we have to finally come to the conclusion we are not this body. We are not this flesh and these bones. We are not this mind. We are not this desire. We are not what we have made ourselves up to be all these years. We're something else. Into man, into each of us, as we were being formed in the womb, as this body was being grown in the womb, there was blown into us a soul from Allah. And Gabriel was given the work of blowing this soul into man. Two things came at that time. And this is how Bawa explains it to us. Blown into us was the soul and the breath of Gabriel. So we have the soul, which is that purity, but we also have the breath of Gabriel, which was blown into us, which is not of the purity of Allah. It's a lesser thing. And people have given it names, but it's a lesser thing. And we live with this purity and this lesser thing. And the lesser thing is easier for us to attach to than the truth. So this lesser thing, this form thing, this thing that goes up to the level of the intellect becomes overriding in our lives, and our difficulty and our problem is to override this lesser thing to bring ourselves up into the greater thing, the truth. So we live a life in illusion, or we live a life in reality. And if we live a life in reality, we understand the transient nature of the illusory life. And if we understand the transient nature of the illusory life, and that transient nature being something that is encountered by everyone and is part of the entire creation, then we don't see it in a way that causes us to be uproar about it. We don't see it in a way that causes fear. We don't see it in a way that causes upsetment. We see it in a way that this is the nature of the way things are. And when we can do that, then we will begin to change. And then our fear will leave. And when our fear leaves, there's room for gratitude. When we're no longer worried about when this is going to happen and how this happens, and is this going to go this way and is that going to go that way, our fear leaves. When we can finally understand that none of this form can touch Allah, that none of this form has an effect on that truth and on that reality, then that's when our life changes. But if we can't do that, if we can't make that split, then we are stuck with the dissipation of form and the grieving over the dissipation of form and the difficulty of seeing form fade away, including our own form. So when we see all of these difficulties in the world, they are mirrors for the difficulty of this body. They are mirrors for the difficulty for ourselves. And all of a sudden, everything is an example of what's going on with us. If there's disease in the world, then there could be disease in us. If there's poverty in the world, there could be poverty in us. If there's death in the world, there could be death in us. In truth, there is no poverty. In truth, there is no death. In truth, nothing can be diminished. Allah cannot be diminished. As much as he gives and as much as is taken from him, he cannot be diminished. But in the world, everything can be diminished. The economists have written books about how there is a finite amount of goods and everyone has to struggle to obtain their share. And those who lose the struggle lead lesser lives or are more important or are less important people. But one has to understand that form is an illusion, and fighting over form is an illusion, and collecting form is an illusion, and it's all temporary, just as this life is temporary, this life of this body, which is not who we are. This is temporary. So we, each of us, need to understand the joy of escape. We need to understand the joy of freedom. We need to understand the joy of release. But instead, we worry about every little thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be empathetic and you shouldn't help in every way that you can. Allah maintains and sustains this world. If he didn't give it import, he wouldn't be doing that. So if Allah gives it import, we should give it import also, and we should help it as best we can. But we should never let it overwhelm us, because we should always know that it's a temporary manifestation as opposed to a permanent thing. There's no permanency here. Look around. It should be self-evident. There's no permanency here. And as we get older and closer to that time where this illusion fades, dissipates, disappears, falls apart. And we become attached to what's left of it. We become frightened and we lose gratitude because all of a sudden things seem to be taken from us. Things are taken away from us that we've held on to for so long, we've grown accustomed to for so long. But Allah doesn't take things away from you without replacing them with greater things. And this is faith. And this is belief. And this is truth. But we have to carry this truth without wavering. There was a prime minister of England who was called the Iron Lady. And she said to one of our presidents, who was president while she was prime minister, "Don't get wobbly on me." And this is what we do. We get wobbly. We lose our strength. We lose our belief. We don't stay the course, and we need to stay the course. We need to stay the course in faith. We need to stay the course in belief. And as long as we separate the world into tiny parts, and we think all of them are different than each other, and we think all of them are separate from each other, and that some are better and some are worse, then we get involved in illusion and trying to juggle illusion. We get involved in trying to juggle form. We get involved in trying to manipulate form so that form meets our mind's expectations of where that form should be. And we can't do that, because all that does is lead us in circular patterns that go nowhere, that don't have conclusions. It's looking for answers in places where answers can't be found. This is why Allah sent us the kalima, La ilaha illallah. He sent us that final understanding. Nothing exists but God, and only God exists. And that is the point of truth. Everything else is a point of illusion. And until we reach that point of truth, we're not going to have truth. We're not going to have gratitude. We're not going to have mercy. We're not going to have love. We're not going to have any of these things because we're too involved with form. And form doesn't work like that. So, what is it that we have to do? We have to slowly begin to alter our lifestyles and our belief systems, and we have to cut away from ourselves all of the things that we hold on to that pull us away from the formless. We have to pull away from all of the attachments that we have to everything that pulls us away from the formless. We have to be able to be rid of our personalities. And it took us so many years to develop them. And we've gotten so good at it. And we can impress so many people with it. And we can do so much with it. We can walk into a room and wave our hand, and people turn to look at us to see what we have to say because we're important. We're not important. It's all an illusion. It's all a joke. It's all a path to understand the truth. And if we call that which is not the truth, we're going to be miserable. We're going to be afraid. We're going to be in a situation that we think we're trapped and there's no way out of. So God has given us this life, and he's told us we have to give it up. And we say, why? Why'd you give it to us if we have to give it up? And he says, because I have more for you. I have what's beyond your imagination. And can you have faith enough in me, your God, to believe that there's more than you can know? Hey, do you have faith in me, in your Lord, that I am greater than you are? Do you have faith in me, in your Lord, to surrender everything about yourself to me and let me be the one who pushes this ride? Let me be the one who takes you on this path. Let me be the one that you surrender to and allow me to take you to glory. Can we do that? Can we go that way? Can we stay attached to the formless and leave our attachment to form behind? We have to consider that. We have to look at it very closely. And we have to understand that with attachment to the form comes illness and old age and death and grief. And with attachment to the formless comes everlasting life and the glory of being with your Creator. May that glory be what is available for each and every one of us. And may we come to know that and appreciate that and believe in that. And may our faith be so strong that fear has no place in us, and that all of the emotional upsetment that comes from form leaves us, and we reside within the glory of the qualities of our Lord. Amin. Amin. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.